Welcome to the fundamentals of gearing. Each piece of gear has a primary stat and substats. What these stats can be is dictated by the item slot. For example, weapons could only have flat rate attack as their primary stat, helmets could only have flat rate HP as their primary stat, and shields could only have flat rate defense as their primary stat. Gauntlets, chest plates, and boots have a little more depth. Gauntlets and chest plates each have 8 possibilities for primary stats, and boots have 7. And out of each of these possibilities, there are only a few good ones for each item slot. So which ones are worth keeping? For gauntlets, you only want to keep items that have the following primary stats: HP percentage, defense percentage, crit rate percentage, and crit damage percentage. The only chest plates that are worth keeping are the ones with HP percentage, attack percentage, and defense percentage. The only boots worth keeping are the ones with speed as the main stat. Now these are only general rules, and like all rules there are some exceptions. Any piece of gear from the speed set, which has speed substats, can be kept if it gains more speed in the substats as you level it up. These pieces are very good for trying to go first in the arena. Attack percentage gauntlets can be kept if you have a champion who places bomb debuffs. And accuracy main stat chest pieces can be kept if you're going for a very specific high accuracy build. Resistance main stat chest pieces can also be kept if you're going for a very specific high resistance build. And if you have a speed-tuned clan boss team, it's also acceptable to have HP percentage, attack percentage, and defense percentage primary stats on your boots. And now for accessories. Rings can only ever have flat rate HP, attack, and defense as their primary stats. Which ones you decide to keep will depend on the substats. Rings can have flat and percentage-based substats of HP, attack, and defense. The more percentage-based substats on the ring, the better. And ideally, you'll find ones whose percentage substats match the flat rate primary stat. Amulets can only ever have flat rates of HP, attack, and defense, as well as crit damage percentage as the main stats, and the substats are limited to the same stats with the inclusion of resistance and accuracy. A banner has primary stats of flat rate HP, attack, and defense, as well as resistance and accuracy. Banner substats are the same as rings, but with the inclusion of speed. Since amulets are the only accessory slot that can have accuracy as a substat, and banners can only have flat rates of accuracy or resistance, amulets and banners are one of the better places to get accuracy into the builds of your champions who have debuffs in their kit. And because banners are the only accessory slot that can have speed in the substats, banners are a great place to get some extra speed into your builds. Which takes us into the next segment, what to look for in substats. Speed, resistance, and accuracy will always be represented by flat rate values on items. Crit rate and crit damage will always be represented by a percentage value. HP, attack, and defense are the only stats that come in both flat rate values and percentage rate values, and in every situation, the percentage-based values of HP, attack, and defense will always yield more value than their flat rate counterparts. For every champion, you want speed in their substats. If a champion has debuffs in their kit, accuracy is required. Your damage dealers need crit rate percentage in the substats, ideally enough to get them to 100% so they can wear crit damage percentage primary stats on their gauntlets. If you cannot get your damage dealers to 100% crit rate while wearing crit damage gauntlets, it's perfectly fine to equip them with crit rate percentage primary gauntlets instead. For your support champions, look for things like HP percentage and defense percentage in the substats. When gearing your champions, always remember the acronym ASPD. This acronym stands for accuracy, speed, protection, damage. And they appear in order of importance. Let's start with accuracy. If any of your champions have a skill which has a negative impact on the enemy team aside from damage, that effect requires accuracy to be applied. This includes decreasing turn meter, placing debuffs, removing debuffs, or extending debuffs. If a champion has this type of utility in their kit, but aren't built with enough accuracy to apply their debuffs, there's really no point bringing them to the fight at all. If you keep seeing the green letters resisted pop up on your screen, there's a very good chance your champions do not have enough accuracy. General rule of thumb for accuracy is, whichever dungeon level you're facing, add a 0 to the end of that, and that will tell you how much accuracy you need to aim for as a minimum in your builds. Next up is speed. Speed is the most powerful stat in the game. Having more speed means you go first. Having enough speed means you get to take multiple turns before the enemies even go once. Imagine, you and I are playing a game of chess, but in that game of chess, I get to take 2 turns for every 1 turn you take. Imagine how lopsided that game would be in my favor. You get enough speed in your champion builds, and you can play raid that way in dungeons. More speed means more turns, means more skills used, means more damage, means more winning. The minimum amount of speed you should have on any champion is about 170, but you should always consider aiming for over 200. Most enemies in dungeons have around 100 speed. Getting over 200 speed will generally allow you to take 2 turns for every 1 they take. If you've been paying attention to this Fire Knight run, you may have noticed not a single enemy has taken a turn. My team went untouched the entire run. This is because my team is manipulating their speed with decreased speed debuffs and turn meter reduction, and manipulating the speed of my own team with speed buffs and turn meter boosts. Next up is protection. Protection can refer to a number of things. It can be in the form of stats like defense or HP. It can come in the form of buffs being placed by your supports, like block damage, ally protect, increased defense, or it can come in the form of crowd control effects like provoke, freeze, or stun. It doesn't matter how you protect your champions as long as you keep them alive. If you don't have crowd control effects that can keep your enemies at bay, or really powerful supports to keep your damage dealers alive, you may need to build more defense and HP stats into your champions. Try to aim for over 2,000 defense and over 35,000 HP as a minimum, but more is always better. And last we get to damage, probably the most exciting of the bunch. Once you have met the above criteria, you're landing your debuffs, you're running circles around your foes, and you're making like the Bee Gees, then and only then should you begin to work on building damage into your champions. Well, that's it for this guide, which was only intended to teach you the core fundamentals and lay the groundwork to get you on the right track towards learning to gear your champions. If you're looking for a more in-depth guide on how to gear specific types of champions, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications because that guide is coming soon. If you enjoyed this guide and found it helpful, please be sure to hit the like button as it will help other players like yourself find this guide in the future. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and until next time, happy raiding.